Happy Halloween! You've reached the Spooky Signal Watch, your haunt for movies, television, comics, and morgues. I'm your ghost, Ryan Steens. Join me and a crypt full of co-contributors as we exhume cultural artifacts of the 20th century, boldly explode the 21st, and try to put it all in perspective. Stay terrified. We're gonna try to make this horrifying. Woo! And welcome to a Halloween episode of the Spooky Signal Watch.
Spooky.
And with me today is
Spooky Jamie.
And I'm your host, Ryan Steens, being creepy and ghoulish. But today we're covering the 1933 film, The Invisible Man. Part of the original cycle of the Universal horror films. So, Jamie, you've seen this one before, correct?
I had not seen this one before. I was shocked. Because as much as you love the Universal monsters, I mean, I've seen, like, Dracula's daughter and Frankenstein's great uncle and whatever. You know, there's so many. And I've seen a lot of them. But for some reason, and this is one of the original.
Yeah.
I had not seen this one.
Okay. Fun. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Right.
which made it more fun for me. Thought this was delightful.
Good.
I mean, I'm not sure that it was the intended effect. I think it would have been a lot more like I was trying to like imagine seeing it for the first time in 1933.
Right.
Like the special effects were groundbreaking.
Yes.
And that would have been creepy.
Yes.
And yeah, imagining an invisible guy running around. I mean, that's, you know, and just the look of him when he's all bandaged up, and a lot of that has a creepy element to it.
Sure.
But viewing it today, I couldn't help it. There is an element of when he is running around in his true invisible self, which means stripping down naked, so you just can't see him at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just his voiceover. And anytime he is running havoc through the town, like just messing with people, there's an element of, you can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man, tee. And it is so funny. Like, I don't think they intended it to be funny.
I will disagree with that statement.
Oh, some of it. Well, I guess when he's like stealing the bicycle and all of that, that's funny.
Does it color at all when I say this was directed by James Whale?
Oh, right. See, I forgot about that part.
Yeah. So The Invisible Man was directed by James Whale, who had previously done Frankenstein and would go on to do Bride of Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
To me, those movies both feel shockingly modern when I watch them. There's just a lot of modern sensibilities, and especially when you get into Bride of Frankenstein, that movie is high camp.
Yes.
In an era that did not understand high camp. And I think that this is your first, because Frankenstein the first one doesn't really have the camp aspect.
No.
I mean, it's kind of high energy and over the top. Overacting. But it's not, Yeah, there's just a lot more in Bride of Frankenstein that I think they bring to the
Actually
table. Dr. Pretorius!
Yeah, that actually explains a lot of the overacting in this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then there are some parts, and I mean parts like actor parts, in which it's like, did you just grab this guy off the street? Because that line reading was absolutely terrible. But a lot of like, well, Una O'Connor is in it,
Yes.
being her most Una O'Connor
Yes.
to great effect. There's a lot of screaming and hysterical laughing and just being completely at an 11.
Yes.
But there's also Gloria Stewart,
Mm-hmm.
who I was like, where do I know that name? Where do I know that name? Well, I mean, for me, for modern viewers, she is the woman in Titanic.
It's been 84 years.
84 years. Who won all the accolades and Oscar nominations that year.
And it's very clearly her once you realize.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I actually didn't realize that until this morning when I looked her up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, I just don't know. I know her from somewhere. I probably have seen her in
the nose and
something else.
jawline changed not at all. So
she's not really given much to do. She's kind of
this movie's not passing the Bechdel test.
no. She's Claude Rains. What is his name? Is it Jack?
Yeah, it's Jack Griffin.
Or Jack Griffin is the character's name, but she's his love interest and really not on screen much, but you know, when she is, it's all high melodrama.
Oh, Jack!
Yeah.
We have to get Jack home!
Going to do the fainting on the fainting couch.
There's a podcast or there's a thesis to be written about James Whale and women and why Bride of Frankenstein works so well. At some point. And we can, you know, but I think the bottom line for me is he knew what the studio wanted women to be like, and Bride of Frankenstein was somewhat his response to that, in my opinion. Of you can make the women, you can make them what you want them to be, but they're underneath hissing and furious about it.
Yeah.
And don't want to play your game.
I love that about Bride.
Yeah. If you've not seen Bride of Frankenstein, we did part of a podcast on it a few years ago. And Simon and I were covering, we would do a Universal movie and then we'd do the Hammer remake. And we covered Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and then Hammer's Frankenstein all in one podcast. And I encourage you to go check that podcast out. But yeah, I think this movie's a tremendous amount of fun. I think it's really interesting. It's definitely a horror film. It's a science fiction film as well, is Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. It's H.G. Wells' Invisible Man, so you know it's got science fiction angles and kind of looks at what is the implication of being able to be invisible, but also maybe you're on cocaine.
Oh, they went to great pains to say, oh, this chemical that he used to inject himself to make himself invisible also makes you crazy and want to kill people, apparently.
Yeah.
It's not only is he invisible, he's a huge jerk.
Yes. Yes. It's hilarious.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it's very funny, but let's not. I mean, he is like derailing trains and stuff like that.
Oh, it's horrendous. He gets some ideas in his head that you're just, yeah.
So I'm going to take over the world, but in order to do that, I'm going to murder a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. It's not clear what his plan is, but it doesn't matter because he's, oh man,
he's really thought it through. I think, yeah, because he is crazy.
Yeah. The film opens on him walking towards a small town when he's in the middle of a snowstorm in somewhere outside of London.
Yeah. Already transformed.
Mm-hmm. And kind of entering this inn and demanding a room and demanding things from them. And there's the kind of country bumpkin versus the big city. Like I always forget this movie takes place in 1933 current times until about halfway through the movie.
Mm.
When they start going, okay, telephones and radio and because the people in the village are dressed the same as they have been for 100 years.
Right, right.
And they're still operating as if it's any time between 1933 and 1733. We have rooms available if you're,
Yeah.
but we have to air them out and all this stuff.
I mean, cars show up about midway through, about
Yeah.
30 minutes in.
Yeah. But if he rode up on a horse, you wouldn't be any more
No,
or
I mean,
less
he
surprised.
takes off on some guy's bicycle
Yes.
and throws it at him, which is awesome.
But yeah, what the basic gist of it is, Jack Griffin at some point prior to this film, as Jamie described, had started experimenting to try and become invisible. But why? He doesn't really say, other than he has
Questions.
yes.
Like, why wouldn't he try this on, like, an animal first? Like, you don't know what this is going to do.
Yeah.
That's a big gamble.
Yeah.
Trying it on yourself.
Why not the invisible rat or the invisible chimp?
No, he just went right for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess because movie wouldn't happen.
Yes. I've never read the novel, and maybe I should, by H.G. Wells. I don't know how different this is from that book. What H.G. Wells I have read leads me to believe it's probably somewhat different, but comes to the same general conclusions, maybe. But at this period, Hollywood was just kind of doing whatever Hollywood was doing. So if it's vastly different, I won't be entirely shocked. It probably has characters who have roughly the same names, a few of the same things happening in it, and probably very little else. The cast we mentioned Gloria Stewart. Claude Rains plays Jack Griffin. This is fairly early in his career. He's still, at this point, 9 years away, I think, from Casablanca. And, he would go on to be in he was in The Phantom of the Opera for Universal, so he did other horror. But Claude Rains and of course, The Wolfman in the 40s.
A lot of things where he covers his face.
Well, in The Wolfman, he plays the Wolfman's dad.
Oh,
So
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Lon Chaney Jr.
That's Lon Chaney Jr.
That's
yeah.
right.
Like a lot of James Whale movies, it seems like it was probably filmed in England, and it absolutely was not. It's this like weird combo of like it seems like 75% British casting, and then like, oh, there's Gloria Stewart, and she's doing her mid-Atlantic accent, and there's
So where was it filmed?
I believe it was filmed in L.A. on the Universal
Really?
Backlot. Yeah, yeah. And you have Henry Travers, who you might know from, I believe it's A Wonderful Life, and
Clarence.
yeah, playing Flora's dad.
I immediately was like, it's Clarence. Every time that guy shows up.
So, and he looks exactly the same, but this is like almost 15 years before It's a Wonderful Life. So you're like, what point did you hit middle age, my friend?
Yeah, there's a lot of actors like that. Just don't they appear and they're just middle-aged their entire career.
Yeah. Well, people used to live a lot harder. And I guess Henry Travers was maybe among them. But like you go through the names of all the actors, and it's like E. Clive, who appears in other things. He plays the constable here. He tends to play a lot of butlers and other things.
What's all this then?
Yes.
Yeah.
He may be the person who brought that phrase to America. I wouldn't say it's not scary from a certain point of view. It's scary to conceive of what it would mean to do that to yourself and not to be able to get away from it. You're looking for the solution. Like you didn't think of the antidote before you started injecting yourself.
Yeah.
There's some bad science happening in this.
Yeah. One of the reasons I was eager to watch this one as opposed to more modern versions is I think the more modern versions, because we have had advancements in special effects, at least one of them, because I've seen part of it, go in on the body horror stuff of like, oh, you can see him digesting food, and that's just really gross to me. And I knew there wasn't going to be any of that in here.
Yeah, they talk about it, but they don't show it.
Right. It would be too difficult in 33 to do something like that.
When I was a kid, and I've mentioned this in other Halloween podcasts, but I read, I was coming, there were two waves post 30s of kind of the classic Universal monsters becoming a thing. And one was in the 50s when they hit TV.
Mm-hmm.
TV became a thing and they needed creature features for Saturday night. And also, there's a famous story of Dracula playing in LA and Bela Lugosi driving by and going, there's a line around the theater for this movie I did 20 years ago. So that happened. Those kids grew up and handed the movies over to their kids in the 70s. And that's kind of when I came in. Now, my dad wasn't really ever into the Universal monsters. He didn't care one way or another, but there were cheap paperbacks out about the monsters. And for whatever reason, my mom thought that was something I'd want to read, and she was right. So I remember reading about this movie and them talking about, we still don't really know how they did the effects because there was no such thing as necessarily a green screen back then.
I read that it was basically black on black.
That's exactly right. They finally found that out probably in like the late 80s. Someone was like, oh, well, that was just black velvet on black velvet. Mm-hmm. So it would just absorb the light.
Yeah. And you can kind of see an outline when he's in his PJs mm-hmm. and just with some things. Like there's a scene in which he smokes a cigarette. And so you can see like on the cigarette and on the lighter. But a lot of the stuff, like books moving around, it had to be like just strings or something.
Yeah. And they also do really good things with his weight on like pillows and seat mm-hmm. cushions and footsteps in the snow. Mm-hmm. I mean, people trying to figure out how to mess with film or mess with reality in film. It was, pretty much from day one of film. I mean, that's like, if you have never seen it, I highly recommend the movie Hugo, which is about the French silent filmmaker, Méliès. Is that correct?
I think so.
And all the kind of like, here's this world of imagination we can do by, stopping the camera and jumping out of frame and starting the camera again, and then just splicing it together. So there's been that aspect to, film all along. And if you watch those old Méliès films, which I highly, highly recommend, there's some amazing effects, but he never really did anything like this. And there's just a lot of thought put into things like we can create a chest and then like make the bandages stiff as if he's still in the bandages and like the bottom half of his face is still covered as he's unscrolling the top of his head. It's super effective.
And credit to the actors who are pretending to get punched and manhandled mm-hmm. by nothing.
Yeah.
The guy that threw himself down the stairs.
Yeah. That guy was like given a crisp $100 bill for like, okay.
Dollars.
All right, Jerry, here's what we need you to do.
5.
Yeah, I've also been watching Exorcist 3 recently. So people falling downstairs has been a hot topic for me lately. But yeah, it's kind of psychological horror more than it's, I think, like, oh my God, someone made a monster out of human body parts and it's walking around and moaning at people. Like, and that's not the best way to describe Frankenstein, but it is what it is. And of course, like every one of these other movies, there's kind of like, oh, well, if you're not really familiar with it, the visuals of it are probably what you're familiar with. The guy in the bandages with the sunglasses and the fake nose, and he's maybe wearing the black hat, and it's like, oh, yeah, I know when he takes those off, he's invisible under all that.
Those are some very distinctive sunglasses, by the way, because they do have, like, a side portion to them. Mm-hmm. Like, it's very, like, when I think about the image of the Invisible Man, which I knew before I'd seen the movie, that's part of what I think of. And that was probably what like scientific eyewear looked like back then.
I think they were actually driving goggles.
Were they?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've seen them pop up in other movies that are kind of period thing from taking place a few years earlier, especially in England. I don't know if that idea really caught on here. I think it was more of a thing they did in England at one point.
That's interesting.
I'm not going to Google it right now while we're recording, but I believe that to be true in this moment. But yeah, they're extremely dark in this film. I don't know if they were that dark, but yeah, it's a like everything else that the Universal Monsters did. There's a very distinctive look. And it's been borrowed here and there. Negative Man and the Doom Patrol.
Well, I absolutely thought of that.
Yeah, Larry. But yeah, so people often think when they see Negative Man, he's supposed to be
the Invisible Man.
Man.
No, he's just real gross under there.
And I think it was recently remade with Elizabeth Moss. I was going to watch it, and then it came out about the same week we all went home for COVID, and then it was available streaming, and I tried to watch it at some point. It's available this Halloween, and maybe I'll watch it on Peacock. I think it's on Peacock. Every time I put it on, I know it's also been turned into a movie about domestic abuse.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't know if this is really the flavor of this. I mean, I should watch it at some point. Elizabeth Moss is perfect.
You might be on your own on that one.
Yeah. So, this one has just such a spirit of, I think, fun to everything and really plays the cops up as...
Oh, they're so dumb.
I was going to try and say it nicer, but yeah.
There's guys calling in like within minutes of his initial attack and appearance in the town. So everyone knows there's an invisible dude running around. It's no secret. So there's like guys calling into the cops going, here's what you do. And like they give him all ideas. And like the first guy's idea is fantastic. Throw some ink on him. And they never do that. They just like link arms and like, okay, we got him now. Like he can't run past them. You can't see him.
Well, they do.
He's gonna do like boink, poke you in the eyes and run underneath your arms.
Well, they do. They do surround the police station with guys with paint guns. That's what their plan is.
I didn't catch that, the paint gun thing.
Yeah, that's why he puts dirt on top of the wall of the police station.
Because, like, the cat is...
And then they're supposed to
spray. And they spray the cat instead.
Yeah.
They don't see that. Yeah.
Right.
Such doofuses.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's part of we're all fairly used to kind of like sci-fi concepts at this point. So we're always like, how come they don't know how to deal with the zombies or whatnot? Yeah. So you always have to do this step back of, okay, this is in a world where no one's... If you called the cops and said an invisible man is running around the grocery store knocking things over, the cops are not going to respond that there's an invisible man running around the grocery store.
The chief, who was not privy to the happenings of, his first run around town, even though there are 50 people at least telling him there's an invisible dude, he's still like, you guys, this is mass hysteria. You're pulling one over on me. Because, you're saying that there's an invisible guy.
Yeah. And it really becomes one of those things of you have to, quote unquote, see it with your own eyes before and the guy ends up with his head bashed in by the invisible man. I mean, there's some James Whale brand, irony going from the of like, well, dum-dum, maybe you should have listened to everybody else who was trying to tell you things.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, one of the like most useful guys in the whole movie is the farmer at the end, who, when naked invisible man is on the run and Cole finds shelter in his barn, and he goes in there to start shoveling hay, and there's, a guy sleeping under the hay. He's like, figures it out. Mm-hmm. That's who it is. Goes straight to the cops.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, that's where he is. It's snowing outside.
Yeah.
he's, he can't run anywhere because you're going to see where he's going. I mean, that guy is clutch.
It's an interesting scene too because it has kind of echoes of John Wilkes Booth. That's kind of how John Wilkes Booth ended up going out.
Yeah.
He was hiding in a barn and they basically set it on fire, and then he, I believe, got shot on his way out of the barn. But yeah, it's once everyone's kind of aware of what's going on and all that, they're able to pull together. Now, before that, they kind of set up this other dude. I'm trying to remember his name, Kemp, Dr. Arthur Kemp. And he is rivals for Flora's attention and affections. And he is the other scientist working under,
Clarence.
yeah, under Dr. Cranley. I was trying to remember what the character's name
Clarence.
is. Under Henry Travers. And you just know from this guy's look when he shows up at the beginning of the film and like his first two lines, this dude is absolutely going to get murdered.
He's a goober.
Yeah. And you feel bad for the actor that it's like, I'm sorry, your face makes me think you're going to get murdered in this movie, but you're 100% not making it out to the end.
I mean, he's kind of not cool to Glory Stewart, but then you feel bad for him because he is the person who Dr. Griffin goes to.
Yeah.
And he basically doesn't give him any choice. He's like, I'm going to stay in your house. You're going to bring me food. You're going to do everything I ask. You're going to become an accessory to murder because you're going to be my getaway driver. Like, lays it out for him. And he does all the things because he's scared of him.
Yeah.
Then he also makes the mistake of calling the cops.
So if I was this guy, and I'm not, but if I were, one, I would just be like, yes, Jack. Of course, Jack. Sounds like a plan, Jack. And if I'm preparing his food, I'm just putting rat poison into his food.
Yeah, there are so many things he could have done.
Yeah. And because movie has to happen, he doesn't do those things. I don't think he's like a cad around Flora, but he's clearly in a moment of trauma.
I don't either. I just feel like they wrote those lines in to make you not feel bad for him. Like,
yeah. I mean, they kind of did this. It's the same thing in Frankenstein of the girl to be shown to be desirable has to both have affection for the guy who's going crazy, Dr. Frankenstein, and his friend is also like, if you just give me a shot,
yeah,
I'll rock your world. And she, but they also, and I think in both movies, kind of do it when the women are grieved, and it's not the right time.
It's not, yeah.
But whatever. But it also gives this interesting insight into what was courting like during this period. I have no idea. Like, I've seen Age of Innocence. Like, that's all I've got. Like, I don't really understand why anyone would think this was like a normal thing to do, but it's the same stuff you see in a lot of movies from this period of everyone's kind of vying for the affection. Like, grown men are vying for the affections of a taken woman. I don't know. It's just,
But that didn't stop for a long time. I mean,
no,
this is not something that, I mean,
it's played a lot more subtly, like kind of post 1965 or so.
yeah.
In this period, it's just like, I'm flat out telling you, you need to ditch the zero and get with the hero. Like,
yeah. I mean, jumping a little bit, but even last night, we're currently rewatching Moonlighting because it showed up on Hulu or something.
yes,
And I'm sure we'll maybe do a podcast at some point.
sure. I'll talk about Sybil Shepherd.
Yeah. But we were talking about how inappropriate even like mid-'80s David Addison was.
Oh, yeah. He's an HR nightmare.
Yeah. Like, and that's 50 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's been almost 40 years since that show.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, jeez.
sorry. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 38 years or something. But yeah, I really like the character of Jack Griffin in it. It's amazing that Claude Rains does not show his face until literally the last 20 seconds of the
I was
film.
thinking about that. Like, that's quite not a risk to take, but um, I did read that like Boris Karloff was in talks for this, but he didn't want to do it because he wouldn't be showing his face for the whole thing.
Well, this is right on the heels of him having to play the monster. So,
True. That's very
and
true. But also,
yeah,
I think more importantly, James Whale decided that his voice was not going to carry this.
it would have slowed the movie down. Like I love Boris Karloff, but it would have slowed the movie down. It's a tight hour now.
Yeah,
And I think it would have been
like a scientist, and Claude Rains does. Like he has that intellectual sort of. I mean, maybe he could have done it. He would have.
Claude Rains sounds like a smart guy when he opens his mouth.
Yeah,
That's kind of his bag.
yeah.
Yes.
He's also. I mean, they managed to make him like pretty him up for the final like 10 seconds, and maybe he was a very attractive man in 33. I don't know. I've only seen him in later things, but he's a little weird looking.
He's not classically handsome.
Yeah. So this might have been like a good choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think he totally carries it. I don't know if it made his career or not. I have no real feeling, but he's first listed, which was an interesting choice given like when Karloff did Frankenstein. In the credits, it says monster question
mark. Yeah.
and it was only in subsequent releases. And then on the posters, once the movie blew up and the movie magazines were like, oh, well, the monster is played by this guy, Boris Karloff, you may have seen playing a thug in these other movies and stuff. He did not have a star making career until Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Now I think Claude Rains as an actor, I mean, he's amazing. He's still one of my favorite actors. Probably would have been fine even if he hadn't had this. I don't think it hurt his career that he had this giant star making role where they, put his name up as the first one of the Invisible One.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely terrific. And everybody else is kind of out of central casting. You've seen a lot of these faces before. I'll just laugh because, you can't have one of these movies. Unfortunately, Dwight Frye passed really early. He was a very young man when he died, but he pops up in this as a journalist for like 3 seconds. I don't know if you heard me cackling.
Yes, I did, and I didn't know why you were laughing.
Yeah, he shows up as a journalist, and he's these totally straight lines, but he's still Dwight Frye. He's like, so, do you think you'll come? And you're just like, oh, Dwight Frye, never stop. But yeah, he's in it as well, just for a split second there. But yeah, I mean, with like E.E. Clive and all these guys and Una O'Connor popping up, James Whale absolutely knew what he was making, and he ended up making a movie that 90 years later is still like look, I like Dracula. I've got tickets to go see it next weekend. That movie feels like a product of the early sound era.
Mm-hmm.
Like it works. It's entertaining. This movie feels to me like it could have come out any year within like a 30, 40-year window.
Honestly, I didn't know. I mean, I assumed because it was one of the originals that it was a contemporary of the others.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know when it came out. I really didn't. So I had to look up the year this morning, and I was like, oh, okay, it was 33.
Yeah, like right around when The Mummy's coming out, this thing comes out.
Hats off to them for the effects, because amazing.
Yeah, and I can only imagine, the different, once they had the script, having to think up, like, okay, how are we going to execute each one of these things? So the producers did a great job.
They would have just limited it to like 15 minutes of the movie if they had, I've seen early sci-fi do that where it's just a lot of people standing around talking. But
I got a cold chill thinking about this movie being that, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's special effects throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he shows up as the Invisible Man in the first 5 minutes.
It's interesting to me that we also this week watched Movies in the Room, which was I don't think either of our favorite movies.
No. In fact, I was like, what movie? Yes.
Jamie's already
yes.
overwritten that part of her
I
memory.
really have.
And it's fascinating to see the money thrown at these things. Like, I know they had backlots, so they had kind of like, you need to shoot a European village. Great. Like, we have a European village, just don't show it from this angle because we use that in Frankenstein or whatever. And you do kind of start to recognize pieces of them from film to film. Although this one, I really don't immediately say, oh, that's the building from Frankenstein or anything. But they do. They have these giant sets. They have these giant casts. Like the end of this movie, or the back third of it, has like hundreds of people tromping through the woods. So one day they went somewhere and were like, we need hundreds of people to just walk around the woods around LA or wherever they were and dress in English style clothing and just, hit the shrubs. And then they had to have all these like Keystone Cops outfits to get all the cops pulled together. And it's really the money thrown at these things for the period just seems astronomical. And this isn't even including the special effects. I'm just talking about the sets and all the talent that you see on screen. We talk about now about a $250 million movie. I mean, I'm convinced there's like weird mob accounting going on with all of that. And I don't want to know because there's no way anything you're going to see actually cost $500 million to put out. But these movies were like, oh, $700,000, or whatever. And you're like, wow, people worked for like bread and soup back then.
They kind of did. Yeah.
So it's a very different era but
they didn't have unions also. I
don't think they did yet.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when the guilds started forming up, but I can't have been yet. So anyway, I just think it's as far as like scares go, I mean, you have to kind of buy into the concept of first nobody buying that this is happening. You have to then also understand the like psychological stuff going on with him, what's going on with the people he knew previously. I'm not scared by this movie in any way, shape, or form.
No. But I'm not scared by a lot of the Universal original.
Yeah, sure.
Universal monster. Aside from the first 10 minutes of The Mummy, which are the only good parts. Which was genuinely creepy.
Yeah, aside from that, it's mostly about Zeta Johann just kind of going, I'm feeling weird.
Yeah.
What is happening to me?
Not my favorite one.
Yeah, it's if you're looking for something that you can actually probably watch with the kids that still has some mayhem in it and whatnot. Now I do have the box set. This is my second time to have the box set of Invisible Man movies. I believe back in the aughts, I watched Return of the Invisible Man, but I cannot remember it. So I might tonight be watching Return of the Invisible Man. My understanding, though, is those movies, like the second one's just like a straight sci-fi movie, and the third one's a comedy. Like they don't stick to let's build on what we had before.
Okay.
If Jack Griffin's dead, we're not bringing Jack back. It's like
he's very dead. Yeah.
Yeah. There's other people who are becoming invisible in the subsequent movies. I don't think the Invisible Man really shows up even in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein or any of that. I don't think he's part of that.
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't show up generally in like your Monster Squad type, thinking of those things. He's a different kind of universal horror. Maybe he fits in a little better with like the Black Cat and some things like that we've seen. It just has a little bit more of a sci-fi bent to it. So anyway,
I really enjoyed this.
Cool.
I'm not a huge modern horror person, so honestly, I prefer the Universal monster movies because they've got a little something extra, like
Mhm.
be it humor or just how did they do this,
Yeah.
or just the ambiance
Hmm.
of it all. I really do latch onto that as opposed to jump scares and slasher movies, which are not my bag.
How'd you deal with No One Will Save You, Jamie?
Oh my God, you guys, we watched, what was it on Hulu?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's an Alien movie on Hulu this week, which I'll just come out and say it. Like, there's not a lot that just chills me to my core, but because I'm like 10 years old, the gray aliens, the look of a gray alien, just the traditional, cute little makes my skin crawl. And that is all this movie was. From Get, like from the first 10 minutes, you see the first one like stalking her. They're making these like horrible noises. And then it just nonstop for like a whole movie. I made it an hour in and I was like, I have to stop for tonight. And then we got to the next night and Ryan, we were thinking about starting it up again. And I was like, can't, I'm out. I cannot
I
feel
knew
like
there was a 60% chance you were going to do
I
that.
cannot feel like this insides and knots for another 30 minutes. I just can't do it. It's so funny because like I sat through The Thing, The Shining, like all that, and I'm okay. Even Aliens, like yeah, it's scary. There's some jump scares, but it doesn't shake me
Uh-huh.
like seeing these things.
And I think to some extent that's how we've kind of ended up in our house during October watching a lot of Universal and Hammer.
Yeah, because it's not scary.
Yeah, it's scary-ish.
Yeah, it's got a scary atmosphere, but
Yeah, and that's yeah. I didn't mean to throw you under the movie bus, but I wanted to make kind of the contrast of like what scares you versus what doesn't.
yeah, no, I think the people should know.
Versus I'm watching Exorcist 3 right now, and I'm watching it in chunks because I'm actually finding it quite scary.
Oh, wow.
It's good psychological horror stuff.
Hmm.
So, anyway, again, I think that I'd love to actually see this. It's already been remade with Elizabeth Moss. I need to check that one out before I say it needs to get remade. I think it's a fun concept, so I don't think the Elizabeth Moss one looks fun.
Yeah, that's no problem
And
with
so
it.
I'd be curious to see someone kind of pick it up and kind of get back to the camp of this one, of like the shirt running, because James Whale was just laughing and laughing about a guy with no pants running down the road.
When he shows up at, I don't remember the guy's name, his house,
Like Kemp's house?
Kim's house, and he pulls up a chair.
Mm-hmm.
It occurred to me, like at that moment, he is not wearing anything.
Yeah. Put a towel down, my man.
His junk is going to be on that chair.
Yeah.
And it is.
Your junk will always have touched that cushion.
He's going to need some bleach after this.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to wrap it up.
Think
Your
so too.
Junk has stained forever tainted the cushions, so to speak. All right. Happy Halloween, everybody. And
Halloween.
we will, I think this might be our last one for the month. So enjoy, have a great trick or treat, and let us know what you think. Hit like and subscribe. Whatever. I don't know how this works. But we'd love to hear from you. If you've never seen The Invisible Man and you do watch it, let us know what you think. I have actually had a hard time finding it streaming, which shocked me. It's probably out there somewhere.
Complete set.
So order the complete set. You can probably get it on Amazon streaming for like $3.
Yeah.
So do that. Don't pay for high definition. It was filmed, 80, 90 years ago. So getting it in high definition is not going to help you. Standard definition should be fine. Right. I just screwed Amazon out of $1. Happy Halloween.
Bye-bye.
I'm the Invisible Man. I'm the invisible man. Incredible how you can see right through me. When you hear a sound that you just can't place, feel something move that you just can't trace, feel something sit in your head. Don't turn around when you hear me tread. I'm the invisible man. I'm the invisible man. Incredible how you can.
That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.